Yeah, good morning, everyone here in the room, and also good morning the people on live stream somewhere in the north of this wonderful country. Thank you for the invitation to share with you this theme about relation of Earth and people, or Earth and human being, or mankind. I think that both of the qualities are in. And yes, seems that I have been announced as a farmer, but this has gone. I handed over my farm end of last year. And actually, I'm together with Jean-Michel Florin since 2010, heading the agricultural section at the Goetheanum. And since 2 years, I'm also in the board of the Antroposofic Society. So I'm fully engaged at the Goetheanum actually, and the cows are no longer milked by myself. And yeah, the question for me by preparing has been, who are you? How can I in English address and bring this theme in a way that it makes sense and that we have a kind of common sharing about? And I didn't know if you are more on the hand of hands-on farming people or of, yeah, perhaps very deeply trained anthroposophical people. And I was told that the both are here, and perhaps they are even the same. I don't know. So I will try to go to develop this theme in 4 steps or 4 pictures or 4 approaches. And yeah, in this sense, not 1, but 4, because yeah, perhaps then we can, through the 4 sides, we enter into the theme, share in a common way what it is about. And I hope it works for you in my English. It's a Swiss English. You know, we have many languages, so we have also this kind of English, as you have the one in Norge. Yeah.
Excuse me, can I ask, just said that there are some people who want to come at 11 o'clock, that we are aware of that. Is that possible? That we are aware of some people that might come 11 o'clock because they come from the church.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I will arrange it. Yeah. Yeah. So, what means people or man for the earth, and vice versa? And I would like to start very practical, very, let's say, out of the reality of the farming situation. And yesterday I had the possibility to travel around to visit some of your farms. And I have been told that snow has just gone. The sun becomes in the little bit more of north of here. It's just strong enough that the snow melts away and the earth comes out and is present. This brown earth, gray earth, black earth even in some places. And yeah, it makes like this in your hands when you are a gardener or a farmer and you go out and you prepare your soil. Yeah, you are not just waiting that something happens. No, you active yourself, and either in the garden or on the field, either by hand or with the machines, you proceed then to a seeding. You undertake the sowing in spring, and it means that you or we, as people, as men, we bring grains, seeds to the soil, to the earth. And these are seeds of future, I would say. It's an impulse we bring to the earth, who is in some way waiting on an initiative of us as people, as human beings. And we bring something in when there is cultivated seed, which is not purely nature. It's more. It's cultivated, it's selected, it's breeded seed, and we bring it to the soil. So from somewhere, not purely from the earthly reality, something came through our hands to the earth and is there brought in. Seeds of future, seeds of hope, I would say. And when we go now to the side of man, and we ask, when we as human beings, we incarnate, and we came from our existence, where we are before we came down to earth, and it's our birth. So what the earth gives to us is a body. We receive our body in his wonderful way to be shaped, to be functional, to be what it is from the earth. We are welcomed. We are in some way by Mother Earth. Welcomed in a way that we receive what it makes possible that we conduct an earthly existence. Yeah. Now I go back to the earth, which has received the seed, and again the question, what means man, people for the earth? And we can see now that there is the germination of this seed, which has been brought to the soil. And yeah, the first leaves came up, and then the many leaves cover the soil more and more. And then the steam goes up, and leaf after leaf is coming out. And at the end, we have the spike or the flower, which is then ending this growing phase of the plant. But the earth with her forces, with the season of spring and summer, conducts this seed which has been brought in by man, by the farmer, in her, let's say, summer season, the power of the summer season. Yeah. And with joy, I would say, yeah, with a kind of very deep sympathetic gesture, she let grow what the seed of man has brought in. And when we go again of the side of the human being, of the birth, we have the growing of the child with all what it means. Then we have the learning, the schooling, then we have the studying, then the going around, looking in different regions, in different cultures, what it is about, this earthly reality of our culture. And then it engages, the biography engages in some place to help to work what has been worked out. And there is perhaps some research done and a new insight and a new innovation or a new impulse is brought by someone or by every one of us to this overall, let's say, network of our culture. And slowly then it goes to the senior stages of our biography. I go back to the earthly reality. The plant has finished the growing, and now there is, after the flowering, the new, let's say, grains, the new seeds are becoming a reality. And with the seeds, sometimes also the fruits, or by side. So when it's a cultivated breed, and it's not just for replication of its own nature, but it's for to give something for the farmer, for the people. Let's say food, let's say fibers, let's say energy. So this fruit, or let's say the result of the old mother plant, has to go completely in the fruit, in the new grain. It has to be very, very ripe there. And the original forces which have been capable to let grow this, they really have to took themselves back, completely back, in order that a high quality of this pumpkin, of this tomato, of this grain of wheat really can then be a reality. It means it's the situation of fall, of autumn, and it's the moment of death, of what has been life in spring and summertime. It's the third step. One has, as a plant, as a seasonal life of the earth, really to be capable to completely die in order to make possible that the new generation can really take on life. And when I go now again to the side of man, it's the same. One has in some moment to stop, to finish life, perhaps first to hand over, let's say, the farm. And I have seen situations yesterday. It's not easy at all. And sometimes it's too late. Sometimes it works well. And then one steps back, and at the end, one has to leave the body. One has, in some way, to, as one has entered the earthly reality, one has to leave the earthly reality. Yeah? This is the third step. And when I go again back to the plant, when now this happened, we have different streams which are going on. The new generation, some of the grains of the new generation, they will be the seed grains in the next spring. Okay? Many of the grains of the wheat we have had, they will become bread. They will be food for us. This has been the aim. And the whole other part of the plant will become straw. Is this a right word? Straw. And the farmer takes it, brings it in the stable. It becomes manure together with what comes from the cows, and then goes out and will be composted, goes to the soil again, and becomes humus. Is the earthly, let's say, motherhood again for whatever comes as a new seed. Yeah? So it goes through this winter path, which is the opposite or the complementary path of the summer path, where it becomes not itself, it becomes earth in general, humus, fertile soil. And when I go again to the side of the human being, when death happened, then the earthly reality of the body goes back also here to the overall earthly nature, and step by step what has been our constitution resolves in the cosmic realities, and let's say the grain of our individuality makes a journey through the cosmos and goes to what Rudolf Steiner calls the sun of midnight, and then slowly comes back in order to reincarnate out in some way of what is the karmic result of the last lives, but in order also to be able to accept the new earthly realities which I will encounter. And so we see on the both sides, on the earth with her plants and her life, and on the side of the man, that we have this kind of 4 steps, which are related actually to the seasons, that we have the spring situation, the situation of summer, then the fall, and then the winter. Yeah. We can also say we have birth and death, or we can also say we have the journey here on earth, which makes our biography, and we have the journey in the spiritual world, which makes us coming again for a new life, which is the winter path. Yeah, which is the winter path. You know it from the story of Olaf Osterson. Huh? He makes this path and comes back. Yeah? And in this way, I would conclude that you see the earth is the place of our destiny. And we, as people, as men, are in some way the destiny for the earth. We are interlinked. This is, let's say, the starting situation, that the substance of the destiny, of our destiny, is the earth. And the substance of earth's destiny comes from us. And in this way, perhaps it can become more or less clear that there is an intimate interlinkation between us as men, as human beings, as people, each one of us, with the earth as the situation where we come and we go again. As the earth comes in spring, has his life, and goes again back under the snow in the winter time. It's this kind of breathing which makes it being, showing up, becoming reality in the earthly, sensorial way, and then, on the other hand, being again not so much in the sensible world, but even more active, perhaps in a spiritual sense. And this breathing between the both and going through birth or germination, and then through death, or giving the forces to the new generation for the earth. This is what we have in common and what is our common destiny. Please come in. So this has been the first approach, the first picture which came to me when I traveled around yesterday, and I have seen all this Norwegian ground coming from his winter sleeping situation and now being worked and seeded by the farming people. and the farming people do it for all people. Yeah. Now I would like to go for the next step, for the next approach, and this, let's say, archetypal situation, which we can deeply experience in each time, has been now disturbed, is under stress, and is in some way in danger, because we, as the seed bringers for the earth, we brought some, let's say, toxic seed for the earth. Throughout the last centuries, we developed in our modern civilization, in our modern culture, in a way that we took more and more distance to what is the living earthly reality. This has been an endeavor which is great, but which conducts actually to a dangerous situation. And great, why can we say it's great? Because, yeah, a tractor is great. Yeah, you agree, huh? It's great. Yeah? And a car is great. And to have a heated situation in a house is great. And even to take a plane to come from Switzerland to Norway and back is great. Yeah. So, and to have a mobile phone, that can be great. Yeah. Okay. So this is what we achieved, that we looked to nature from modern times on, and our question has not been, how is life therein? How are the gods living in? No, our question has been, what are, let's say, the absolute abstract rules, the natural, was heißt Gesetze? Laws, yeah, the natural laws, yeah. And so we discovered that out of our intellectual logic, we can have a look to nature where she can't escape, yeah. It's always like this. And based on this, we can construct our machines and our equipments and our mobile phones and. So this taking distance and being in some way no longer connected, but being disconnected, means that out of a certain view on this earthly reality, we can shape, we construct a second earthly reality, which is our technique. Great. Imagine we wouldn't have it. Yeah. And we know that actually this way to do is so strong, is so overall covering the whole planet, that the natural side of the planet is in danger, is collapsing, and we have all the disasters we have in our, let's say, yeah, ecological balance we have as from our civilization. And before I go to this, it's always astonishing that Rudolf Steiner says, and it has been right that it happened like this. It's not a kind of mistake of history, but let's say the goal of this evolution since 500, 600 centuries has not been the technique. This is just what came out by sight. The real, let's say, challenge, endeavor, and goal for this has been that we, as human beings, we acquire our personal freedom. It's about liberty, it's about freedom. It's about to be independent to be sovereign, not to be related. To be disconnected means I stand on my own. I have my freedom, not only in the group I belong to, and so on. No, as an individuality, I stand on my own feet and I'm in front of what has been, let's say, the working space of the gods has become a death, let's say, mechanism of natural laws. And this gives me the possibility to say, I'm here. All what is not me is the world. And all what is not the world, it's I. So this confrontation, which is the base of that each one of us can say, I can conduct my life out of my free will. This is the goal, and the price we had to pay to achieve this is to have our modern civilization. And this we have to take into account, because when we look to this disaster, ecological disaster, which is, I would say, not only an ecological one, which is also a social one and which is also a cultural one. Yeah. Which is in some way a situation where the breathing for our Earth is handicapped, what we call the climate crisis. Yeah, the breathing in the stratosphere is, let's say, handicapped, is not going well between the earthly atmosphere and the cosmical situation around. We say it's too much CO2 in the atmosphere. It conducts to a heating up, and then it goes further on. And it's not only climate change, it's really a breakup of the climate constitution in general. And this is, let's say, not, I don't say this because I'm believing to the scenarios which are calculated by computers, but what we already experience on our farms. Yeah? This kind of no longer really taken in an overall harmonious situation through the seasons of our weather situation, and there behind is a kind of, yeah, it's Hans-Uli Schmutz who calls it a kind of breaking down of what has held the climate throughout the last 10,000 years. Thank you. This is the one situation we have. The other situation we have is a huge loss of biodiversity. This will come in forefront of our societal discussion. We know it already as being with nature, and it's huge, huge, huge. And we don't know where it will conduct. And in some way, when we ask ourselves, but where does it come from? It comes in some way from our handicapped feeling that we can't, with our feeling, embrace, let's say, the multitude, the diversity of what we are. Yeah? We are always with our feeling oriented to ourselves. Do I like it or not? This is the basic, let's say, gesture of the feeling. And with this, of course, biodiversity, social diversity, cultural diversity will become narrow, because it's also egocentric. It's always egocentric, my feeling. So we have to shape, we have to evolve in our feeling, as we have to evolve with our willpower when we are looking to the climate situation, because never each one of us or any one of us would have thought that when we are really working hard here with our machines on the earth to fulfill our mission of our lives, that at the end it will break down at the end of the atmosphere. It's a funny phenomena that each one of us is doing the best he can, but from an egocentric point of view. And at the end, it's the periphery who gives an echo, saying, hey, if only each one is going his own path for the overall situation, it will not fit. So we have, for our way to do, to shape and to reinvent, how can we do out of, let's say, a togetherness and with the feeling. And the third, I would say, big chapter of environmental, of ecological disaster we have is the waste. Yeah, the plastic is all over. You know it very well on your coast here. It's all over with this plastic, and even with the microplastic. It's already in our blood. Microplastic. We have chemical waste. We have in Switzerland, we have a nice agriculture. It's for the tourists. So it's not the way it's done in the Netherlands, yeah. But in each of our sources for the drinking water, we have the pesticides in each one. And the third category of waste we have is the radioactive waste. We know all about, and as out of the actual discussion with climate crisis, we all know that probably we will, we will produce more of it. So, yeah, this is when you go to the UN reports about the ecological situation, waste, loss of biodiversity, and the climate crisis. These are three of the big categories. And this comes from us. And so in this sense, yeah, we have in some way, we didn't hold our promise to the earth that we are interlinked, that we are in a partnership. We harm earth and we create a disaster of the earth as a living being by doing as we do. But in some way, the overall or the deep, let's say, force for to do like this has been our personal freedom. So we are really in the situation when we ask now, but how can we go out of this disaster? Should we give up our personal freedom and become again as our ancestors have been? Or what way is possible? And we know all that in agriculture, but on other fields, what is proposed is to establish, to invent the new generation of technique. Yeah, let's do vertical farming. Yeah, let's not do farming on the ground. Let's do vertical farming with LED light and do the salads in an industrial way. Yeah, it already exists. Or let's do a new generation of breeding technique, yeah, the CRISPR-Cas technique. This will help to overcome the situation we have with the climate crisis. Even with green people of the green parties, even with some of the organic people, yeah, we are longing for the next because it's so genius, this CRISPR-Cas, yeah? And this vertical farming or smart farming. Yeah, all is done via the processors. And it's this artificial intelligence. He will learn each time he drives across the field, he learns more where the field needs some pesticide or some nitrogen or so on, or leads to artificial meat and so on. Yeah, so this is the one stream. To overcome is to switch on the next technical step. And we are all taken in, yeah. Perhaps we think as being biodynamic people, anthroposophic people, it's not the way to go, but it will take us with us, yeah. It's already further developed as we already, as we still think. Yeah? There is another reaction to this, and the reaction is stop. Let's stop. No fly, no tractors, no nothing. Yeah? And this means land conservation or nature conservation. Yeah? It means, as you said, we are a kind of very problematic being for the earth, for the ecological situation, and we should go out of the game. Yeah. So we, with our possibility to bring future, as the future we bring is so problematic, let's take men out and let's do land or nature conservation. It's an English term, huh? Meaning that when we, that we could in some way save something of the old life by taking us out. A little bit less strong position on this is not land or nature conservation, is nature protection. Yeah? And this is already also in our biodynamic way to farm integrated, because bio means respecting life as it is. So the organic movement is more or less, but has a strong base in the protection of nature attitude. And we have it in our biodynamic approach too, protection of life. And then there is a next step where we could say that also only by developing further on the life, we will have an answer. So it's not conservation, it's not protection, it's developing of nature, but not of technique. Let's try to imagine that a way out of the disaster could be, not the only way, but the contribution could be to approach this Mother Earth, this nature which we are in our earthly existence, in a way that we bring out of our capacity, which can conduct a disaster. We try to bring culture, we try to bring future, but real opening future down to earth, in the reality of the soils and the plants and the animals. And now I would start the third step of my approach and trying to enter this evolving stream for a new partnership between people and planet. Yeah? We have seen the old partnership, the given relation in some way has been broken. We went out as human beings because we had to say, dear mother, it has been enough now. We have to become independent. We need our freedom. And we did so. And now we have the situation that when we go further with our freedom oriented to our ego, we will break down the earth. And I come back just to the ways out. One of the ways out, which is also worked on, is to go to another planet, to be a departing humanity. Yeah. So Elon Musk, for example, he's working on this. He says it's broken down, the Earth, let's go to Mars. And whole is billions, yeah? He is investing in a technique, yeah, to leave the Earth, to go out to another space, to another reality. Not in a spiritual way, but in a real physical way, yeah? It's the same with Jeff Bezos. The two very rich person we created all with our behavior. They have the billions actually, and they are visionaries, and they say, okay, it becomes a little bit difficult on Earth. Let's try to build the Earth too on Mars or somewhere else. Yeah? And our attitude, I would say, which I try to develop, is to keep with the Earth because it's the substance of our destiny. And we are the substance of the destiny of the Earth, as we have seen with the first approach. Then we acquired our freedom, our individual freedom. It means sovereignty about, in some way, our destiny, each one of himself. But what we did by doing so is to harm the nature, the Earth, in a way that there will be no longer a possibility to have a next evolution. So we have out of our freedom, based on our freedom, face the Earth, the nature, and to try to take her with us to our evolution, yeah? As the little prince did on his planet. Yeah? This is more or less a poetic picture of what we are. We are little princes. We are guests on the Earth. But now the Earth, yeah, the fox, as a part of the Earth, is asking to the little prince, could you take me with you? Yeah, it's not the little prince who says, I will catch you, yeah, and make a kind of production out of you. Yeah, it's the other way around. So nature, in some way, is asking to us as human beings, as people, as mankind, to be taken with us to a cultural evolution. But by, yeah, not being destroyed, but by being respected. So we are asked to be co-creators. We are not the creators, these are the gods. But actually we are more the destroyers of what the godness they have created. And what we are asked to is now to become co-creators more and more. And to take the courage and to say, as we can bring a seed to the ground, can we also bring a new, let's say, point of evolutionary life to the earth, to the nature. And in this way, we can have a look to the biodynamic agriculture. We could have a look to the evolution of us, as anthroposophy does, because anthroposophy says, man, people, we are not finished. We are the ones of all beings on the earth who are open beings. We are, all our constitution, all our culture means you are not finished. You, people, you have to learn, you have to evolve, you have to take yourself and to make steps towards an evolution which is not already in your hands. Yeah? And this we could do, but I would like now to look to what we do out of this overall gesture by doing practically on a biodynamic farming situation. So it's a look to 7 principles of biodynamics. It's the 3rd approach. And it's not to have a nice picture of what it is, biodynamics. It's more to have, let's say, an evolutionary picture, always based on practical work, because I have been a hands-on farmer for 30 years. Okay, are we still together? Can you follow? So we go for our break is at 12 o'clock, huh? Yeah. 7 principles of biodynamics. This is now the next step. And they are not given by Steiner. It came out of a work we have done in a group. And it goes like this. The first one is a very general. It becomes more specific, then more, and then is a crossing point. This is the principle 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have the principles 5, 6, and 7, which goes again from the crossing point in a wider perspective. This is how it is shaped. And the first, the very general one, is this line, which means this is the ground. It is where, let's say, the upper world and the world down there, they encounter. And we have now the situation that what is just, let's say, a line can become a kind of interwoven sphere. And to see the soil as a breathing organ, this is one of the approaches Steiner brings in the agricultural course. Yeah? He compares the soil to our diaphragm, to our situation we have where we breathe with, yeah? Breathe in, breathe out. And so this soil, which is not the soil, but just the ground, becomes a breathing organ. And the basic gesture is that the upper world, which means light, air, and warmth, interpenetrates the world from down under, which means what is earth and what is moisture. And you have there this layer, this very thin layer of fertile soil, where the upper and the the deeper world they interpenetrate. This has been the basic gesture of creating agriculture, to open up the soil and to bring light, air, and warmth in, and not to have a desertic soil, but to have a soil which is in itself like a diaphragm, and where the seasons can weave in and out, and where the rhythms of the day and where the rhythms of the moon and so on, there is a breathing organ in a very deep way, and so that in some way this upper world and, let's say, the world of the earth they result in the earth as a breathing organ. This is the principal one, the horizontal dimension. And we as farmers, we are the people of this horizontal dimension. Yeah? All our life is dedicated to build up fertile soil. We don't know why. But we are completely exhausted when the season is over, and we sleep for 2 or 3 months, and then the spring comes again, and chuff, we are again ready to engage fully. What for? In the deeper, let's say, dimensions of our biographies, it's this engagement for a fertile soil, which is not rational. Yeah, it's something which are engaged. Then we have the second principle, and now we have the plants. Or let's say a wheat plant. And each of these plants has also the roots. Huh? And this means that now comes to the vertical dimension, comes this, to the horizontal dimension comes now this, I would say, vertical dimension. Yeah? The verticality of the plant is, let's say, the same we have. The animals are in the horizontal, yeah? But the plant grows vertical to the horizontal ground. And how can we, let's say, be co-creative for the plant to, let's say, play with this verticality? This is one of the deepest questions for biodynamics. Our plants, they are in another way vertical than conventional plants with a lot of nitrogen and so on. It's one of our basic questions. And when you think, where are they heading to? The plants with their flowers or their grains, they are all pointing to the sun. And where are the roots pointing to? Imagine the globe and plants all over Norway, Russia, China, Australia, Africa, South America. They are all heading to the center of the earth. Yeah? So this verticality on a very specific place means it's an interconnection between the center of the earth and the sun going around. This is the second principle we are working on. And when you're a breeder of plants, and when you're doing, as I have seen, this work by breeding and multiplying seeds of plants, this is what you're working with in a deeper way. And then we came to a third element, the third principle. And now we introduce the cow, meaning the animals. Yeah? And I try. So this is my cow. It's a Swiss cow, and she has horns. And she makes the dung, and then I make out of the dung a compost heap. And in some way, we know the ones of us who have cows, they are eating the day long. And when you have 8 months of winter, as you have here in Norway, it's horrible because they are eating all day long. And the question is, do you have enough fodder for them? Yeah? But you can't stop them. So their nature is just to digest. They do nothing other. And they then give out of this wonderful dung, which makes possible to have a fertile soil on the long-term run. Yeah? That the one generation can farm on a place, and the second generation too, and the third too, and the fourth too. You know, you have places in Norway where the story of the place, of the farm, goes back for centuries, and it's a kind of miracle. Why is it always possible to stay on the same place and to have a harvest each year? And not to be obliged to move and to go to the next place. Yeah? And this is only possible, as far as we know, out of, let's say, agricultural knowledge, by and with the dung of the ruminants. And the best or highest developed ruminant is the cow. And of course, the sheep and the goats and so on are also. And we have to complete the cows with the other animals. But for the build-up of the fertile soil and to be on a place on the long-term run, it's in some way a necessity. And what happens is that the fodder goes in the cow and has a complete, I draw a loop like this, yeah? Has a complete transformation again in the compost and again in the soil. Yeah? And this is what makes our farm to an entity, to a living entity, to what we call a farm organism. It became sustainable in itself because we have, with the three elements of the soil, the plant, and the animals, let's say, a kind of building up an entity which is not a system, which is not a mechanism, which is not only a link, which is a real organism, which can carry life throughout centuries, I would say, and is in this way like a small model of the living earth. Yeah? As the earth is a living being in some way, we recreate a living earth on our farms. This is the concept of the farm organism, or the agricultural organism. Can also be built among different farms. Yeah, it's a concept, it's a principle. It's not a narrow view on the things. But it's important that what the cow has as a fodder has been let's say, what she creates as a dung has then been brought back to the soil where the next generation of plant is growing. And this creates this inner sphere as a kind of new life situation out of the overall natural life situation. And now we come to the principle 4. And now we take a horn. We take a horn from the cow, for example. So not the cow, but one organ of the cow, but which belongs deeply to the essence of the cow, to the being of the cow. The one of you know, it's only the ruminants who have horns. So in some way, it belongs to this capability to digest and to transform the substances, the horn. And we take, on the other hand, a crystal, which is out of the mineral world, a kind of, very high and pure realization of silica crystal. And we destroy it, we make a powder out of it. And the powder we make with some water, we bring it in and we fill the horn with the powder of the crystal. And then we bring this horn, we dig it in the ground in summertime. And we take another horn and we fill it with the dung, which is transformed material of plants. And we dig it in, we bury it in the winter time. And out of this substance, which is crystal, which is a winter substance, but by being transformed in the horn, in the summer earth, we create a new substance. We create a new substance which didn't exist before, but which is completely out of what we have in our farm organism: animal, mineral, and the seasons. And there out came a substance now which can be applied, a silica preparation, in order to help the plants to connect with their green parts to the cosmos, to the warmth and the light and the air. We foster, we help, we co-create a new, let's say, preparation to help the plants to grow, to connect, to reconnect. Out of our freedom we do this, not out of an old wisdom or of a kind of obligation, out of our old social situations, no, out of the freedoms. You do it on some farms, and your neighbors, they don't do it. So it's really out of freedom you do it on the biodynamic farm. Nobody is obliging you, yeah? And you can stop. And it's really in your hands, yeah? And then we do the second one, and this is the 500, or the horn manure preparation. And this helps via the transformation of the dung in the horn in winter time, then to create a substance when I bring this to my ground, that the plants with their roots, they can link and they can become interconnected with the earth in a new way. In a very new way. We can show this scientifically in which way. life is very dense when we work with this preparation. So it means step 4, we become really artists, co-creators in our farm organism in order to bring new forces from, I would say, the cosmic situation and from the deeply earthly situation in action, in a dynamization on the earth where we are working as farmers. The preparations as one of the principles of biodynamics, which is no longer, let's say, nature protection, which is really trying to take nature with us into an evolutionary dimension of future. And yeah, there are the other preparations, which we have the 6th one for the compost. Yeah, 5 we give in, and the valeriana we give around. So it's a whole complex situation of the preparations, and biodynamics is not only the preparations. I take them to make it concrete and that you have something to touch. Yeah? You really can do the preparations on your farm. You have it, and then you can apply them. It's a realization, I would say, of a meditation. It's real. And I go now more or less quickly to the principle 5, because one could say that's it. This is biodynamics, stop, full stop. Yeah, this is how we explain biodynamics normally. And when I go now for the principles 5, 6, and 7, I go a step further, because it became clear to me that there is a second gesture now, not to concentrate on a point. And I forgot to say, with this gesture, my farm organism became or is on the way to become a farm individuality. And an individuality is normally only meaningful to say for us, for people. Yeah, the fox is not an individuality, and so on. So it's really out of the reality, of the cultural reality of man, that we take the model to shape our farms. So we make, based on the farm organism, we try to bring in the initiative to become a farm individuality or an agricultural individuality. A deep, deep meaning. And now, from this on, I would say we can have 3 principles which are more radiating out. And the one is that what I do on my farm, it's not only ending with the border of my field. I would say the helping, the fostering of this new life forces is also present in a kind of surrounding. With the water, with the air, with the warmth, one has a kind of sphere around a biodynamic farm. And in some way, to make it very short, I have the vision, but we have to work on it, that our farms could be not only places where we have a neutrality on the climate issue, but we have a kind of positive spreading points of a healthy climate. Because with the air, with the water, and with the warmth, what we do on the place is also a reality in the surroundings. Sometimes you can see when you visit the farm, you can experience it. This would be principle 5, that we are acting for healing, let's say, the earthly, the natural reality, even above the very narrow surface of the farm. The 6th one is that we are producing food. And from our farms goes out food. It goes to the cities, to these very poor people in the cities. They have nothing. Yeah, just nice shoes and somewhere an apartment and very stressful days. Nothing else. They need food. And this organism in some way is a productive organism, is a productive individuality. And year after year, we can give away a lot of food, a lot of substance, which has been produced with the help of nature, but out of our farming activity. Yeah? So it's radiating out each farm in a way that it creates food. 2 people, actually, I think it's the same in Norway, have to create the food for 100 people in the overall actual situation. Yeah, something like this, or 3. Yeah, so very productive. And I would say the 3rd or the 7th of the principle is that these arrows, they go more like this. And I draw 3 of them because one can do the observation that places where we work like this with nature, with the earth, are also places where we create basis for new, let's say, ways to conduct, to shape, to create our social life. In some way, what Steiner calls the threefolding, yeah? This kind of new way we should interlink spiritual, cultural life with political life, means where we are all the same, and with our needs, the economical life. When you look, for example, as I have seen yesterday, how it's done on the lawn farm or now also on the other farm, this relation with the foundation and the people working there and so on, there is not only a kind of pioneering or of prototype of a new solution for this farm, it's also a kind of, yeah, action research, I would call this, for a new societal taking into account and responsibility of the social question. So these have been the 7 principles as a kind of imagination of how we could become co-creators as our contribution to find a way out of this very, dangerous situation we are actually in our relation, people, mankind, with the earth, with nature. And I take the 7 minutes which are left to bring my fourth approach, my fourth picture, and I try to make it short. And we have looked now to man and earth, and what is the one for the other one. And now we have to realize that this look is in some way too narrow, because there is also the sun. There is also the moon. There is also all the other stars. It means there is the cosmos, but I take the sun as a representative. And we have to take into account also the sun. Of course, it's, let's say, acting on the earthly situation, but the sun as itself, we have to take into account. We have to widen our perspective. And there is a kind of approach to the sun which goes through 3 steps. And when we go back in our cultural heritage to a point where the sun has been addressed by a first man directly, this was Zarathustra, he addressed this sun as a sun being. Ahura Mazda was his name. And he really has not seen the physical sun. He has not seen the shining sun. He has not seen the warming sun. He has seen and related with the sun being, and he venerated the sun in this very ancient time, thousands of years ago. But he was the bringer of agriculture, because he then made the link of this sun being with the earth being, and created the possibility that earth and cosmos, they interpenetrate in order to create, what we call actually agricultural activity. Then we have had a next step, and this is the ancient Egyptian situation, where they didn't see, it was already a little bit not so clear for them. They couldn't see directly the sun being, but they could relate to the radiation of the sun, to the moving sun. And together with the Chaldean culture, we know this has been this huge knowledge about the movement of the planets and of the stars. And the sun, they have seen this, let's say, the sun which shines, which radiates, and which brings its effects on the earth. And they called it Osiris. And on a third step, with the Greek culture, with the ancient Greek culture, the pre-Socratic Greek culture, they have withstood, I would say, the sun power actually in the atmosphere of the earth, in this light atmosphere on the earth, and it was called Zeus. So Ahura Mazda, Osiris, Zeus. This has been the names, this has been the addressing of what is the sun. And then came the fourth step, that this sun being came even to the earth. And this is how Steiner brings the situation with the Christ being, that in some way he has been the carrier of this power of the sun, of this being of the sun, and went through an incarnation in some way, or an incorporation in a body of a human being, and then has been crucified, and his death has not been the end of his earthly life. Then he had the mission, and he achieved to encounter the death as a reality, and to overcome the death and to be then in a resurrected situation. So the Christ now, not in a church sense, but in a sense of a cosmical being, is in some way the Son being coming to earth and overcoming the death forces in the earth. And since then, he has not left the earth. So the Son forces in some way are with him in our earthly reality of today. So the forces which have overcome the death are in some way present, and we can link to them, either in an inner way, but also in an outer way. And in this way, we can say, Sun has become Earth, and Earth is a becoming Sun. And when we go out in the springtime as now to do our seedings, this is what we do in some way to bring to our Earth, to the Mother Earth, a sun force, a sun gesture from our deepest heart, but also with our hands, in order that we create this common future. Thank you.